Thank you very much, Ken Orley. I'd like to thank the committee for the invitation to discuss Ireland's pathway to incorporation of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child into Irish law. I'm really encouraged by the invitation and the implicit recognition of the importance of the UNCRC for children's rights. As you all know, full and direct incorporation is a key strategic goal of our office, and I'm delighted to have the opportunity to expand on this with you today. It's important to start by saying that in many ways Ireland is a wonderful place to be a child, with the vast majority of children enjoying a safe and happy childhood. But is Ireland the best country in Europe to be a child? To quote the aspirations of a former Taoiseach, not yet, we think. The persistent and structural issues impacting children that come to my office and before this committee indeed demonstrate the state is still falling short of delivering the security and certainty that to enjoy the full suite of rights which, by ratifying the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child back in 1992, Ireland has already said is rightly theirs. We believe incorporation of the 42 rights of the UNCRC into law is the single most important thing we can do to protect and safeguard the rights of all children in Ireland. And given that it's 33 years since ratification, we believe incorporation is the natural next step to fully implementing the UNCRC in Ireland. Putting children's rights into law provides a framework for accountability, puts children at the heart of everything we do, and gives them the opportunity to claim their rights. We've just taken over the presidency of the European Council and will next year bid for a place in the UN Human Rights Council. With the eyes of Europe upon us and with the goalposts shifting on how rights are upheld worldwide, we have a real opportunity to show that Ireland is a true leader in Europe on children's rights, and that at a time when many are walking away from international commitments, Ireland will walk towards them. The reality is that children's rights are not comprehensively or consistently protected in Irish law. The Irish state's approach to children's rights so far has been piecemeal, with the state choosing to partially incorporate only some of the fundamental principles of the UNCRC in specific areas such as family law. But we all know that this is not enough, and the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child has repeatedly expressed concern over Ireland's approach in its concluding observations both in 2016 and in 2023. Incorporation does not create new rights for children, it simply codifies existing rights that the state have already agreed to into domestic law. So, Ireland already sees itself as having these responsibilities towards children. It's important to point out too that we are not starting from scratch. As Young Ireland, which is the national policy framework for children and young people, already commits to indirect incorporation of the UNCRC through commitments in relation to child budgeting, child rights capacity building and training, and child rights impact assessments. Full and direct incorporation would mean that these commitments are mainstreamed across all government departments. The Department of Children, Disability and Equality has commissioned and received, almost 12 months ago, a comprehensive independent report on Ireland's legislative compliance with the UNCRC. And this will be critical in setting out the current gaps in legislation and the best pathway forward. And we urge the Department to publish this report as soon as possible in order to inform the work of this committee. Though the pathway to incorporation will require concerted commitment and effort across government, we can look to countries like Scotland, Norway and Sweden who have shown that it can be done. Yes, it would force a rethink with how decisions are made across the civil service, and there may be resistance to change initially. But as Mark Twain has alluded to, true progress only comes as a result of change. For legislators and policymakers, it improves the policy-making process as children's rights are baked in from the start, leading to greater savings and much greater efficiencies for the state further down the line. Importantly, it would mean these rights are not an add-on, but are fundamental to how we develop and design laws, policies and deliver public services for children. Children's issues are continually fighting for government's attention at a time of global and economic uncertainty, and when all our public services are under pressure. While we are seeing more efforts to listen to the voices of children, and we welcome those increased levels of meaningful youth participation, it's still optional, and decisions continue to be made with little or no consideration of the rights of children and the needs of children, especially when it comes to investing in services that support them. Our annual report for 2025 highlights the consistent issues around resourcing children's services. We see this every year through the complaints we receive about waiting lists for housing, assessment of needs, children disability network teams services, primary care services and lack of school places and CAMs. And we've repeatedly said that budgets are all about choices. And at the moment our budget process is not child-centred. We only need to look at the €38 million spent on private special emergency arrangements in 2025 as an example. Most importantly, children want this and don't have time to wait. Our Youth Advisory Panel are a key driving force in our campaign, and at the first event with approximately 150 children and young people in October of last year, there was a strong mandate from them for us to push for the change that they're seeking. We also have a strong public support for Incorporation. In a recent representative survey of 500 people aged 16 to 24, carried out by Ipsos and B&A Research Company on our behalf, nearly 2/3 are supportive of Incorporation, including 30% who say they would actively advocate for it and 35% who would generally support it. Further 26% remain open to the idea and require more information before taking a clear position, with only 6% expressing opposition or significant concerns, with 3% remaining unsure. At a time when world leaders are challenging the international human rights legal order, a commitment to incorporate the UNCRC would send a strong signal to other member states that Ireland takes the UN human rights system very seriously. Where there's growing cynicism about whether international law matters, where rights are in the balance, our small country on the edge of Europe would send a clear message: they matter here. Thank you very much.
Dr. Muldoon.
It's actually so significant, this piece of work. Ireland is one of the few countries that have actually commissioned this, so the department are to be commended on it. Because, for example, Scotland didn't look at compliance before they incorporated, and now they're trying to do it retrospectively. So we will be in an excellent position having this piece of analysis already done if we were to go ahead with incorporation, which we hope will happen. So yeah, it's vitally important to the discussion that's happening here and more broadly around the UNCRC.
Sorry, I will just add to what my colleague Tricia said there, that, when we talk about incorporation, full and direct incorporation, the beauty of full and direct incorporation is that it does look at the child holistically. What it does is, what it means, basically, direct incorporation, is that the legal text of the Convention would be written directly into Irish law. So all rights that are covered by the Convention, civil and political and economic, social and cultural rights, are in that, are included. And full means the entire Convention. So direct, all the rights in the Convention are in the law, and the entire Convention becomes part of the domestic legal system. That's the beauty of it. And, one of the articles of the Convention, Article 4, refers, when we talk about, issues like health, housing, education, economic, social and cultural rights, the Convention in Article 4 does reflect a realistic acceptance that there can be a lack of resources, be it financial or otherwise, and this can hamper the full implementation of those rights. However, it does introduce the concept of progressive realisation, so which means that such rights, can and should be implemented in a progressive way. So there is always an obligation on the state to invest and implement those rights to the maximum extent of their available resources. So this needs to be taken into account. It is extremely important. Then, when it comes to the steps, in relation to putting Ireland on a pathway to incorporation, I think that it would be great, if possible, as an initial step, to have that review published, because that would kind of, set the ground, identify the gaps, and then we can take it from there. So I think it is an absolutely necessary step.
People we've engaged with so far, there hasn't been any necessarily dissenting. There is always questions about whether we should continue with indirect incorporation or whether we go directly. This is for me, this is the big bang approach as opposed to slow progression. And again, my argument has always been, we have tried slow progression for 33 years. It's not getting us there. Can this make it worse? I don't think so. Can it make it better? Definitely. So there's always a discussion and there's a tension between those things. But I don't think we've come across anyone at this point. But I'm sure they're out there. I mean, we know our colleagues in Northern Ireland trying the same thing, and they would have had different sectoral meetings with different people, whether that's through the faith system, through education system, through parents. We haven't started those conversations yet, but we expect there will be pushback in certain places, but I haven't seen that yet.